It's a real buzz to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity. When John said, could you speak for 12 to 15 minutes, I was a bit stunned because it takes about 12 to 15 minutes for me to say g'day. So how we'll go, I don't know, but let's see how we go. I wanted to have a chat about this digital twin thing, this concept of digital twin. We're in this online space today where it seems to be that every man and his dog is online. Everyone's in that online space. The consumers are there, but the challenge for us is, are we there? Are we seriously there? What's our digital twin? And so that's what we're going to explore. Before I kick that off, those that haven't seen me present before or speak before, can I ask you, what do you reckon that stat is? What do you reckon 5831 is?
You're right.
Close, and thank you very much. I appreciate the feedback. But you're not far off. This is a statistic from the National Association of Realtors in America, and I know it's a Yankee stat, but can I tell you, I've brought this back from January of this year in New York, and I've applied it to a bucket load of businesses. And it says to me this: the average age of a real estate agent in America is 58. The average age of the person consuming the product is 31. And so I've applied that to a bucket load of businesses. If the average age of the person running the show is 58 and the average age of the person consuming the product is 31, that for me is a big challenge for a lot of our businesses. Because 50% of the world's population is under 30. And I think about those behaviours, and I think about my son, Samuel Peter Thomas Brewer, who's 23 years of age. Let me pose a scenario for you. If I were to talk to Sam Brewer, this is kind of what happens. I pick up the phone and I go, ring, 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 ring. It goes to voicemail. And within 15 seconds, a text comes back and says, what do you want? And I text back, I want to friggin' talk to you, pick up the phone. It's kind of how it goes, you know. But who's in charge of that relationship if I want to communicate with Samuel Peter Thomas Brewer? Samuel Peter Thomas Brewer is. Because if I want to communicate to him, I've got to do it in his channels. So my challenge for you is, are we serious about what we're doing online? So 5831, I want you to think about that, because for me it goes down to the vocabulary we use, the devices we use, the channels we get found in. Are we doing the stuff to get found by that consumer? Or are we off the shopping list? Because I've done a lot of business with a lot of people who say, it doesn't matter to me. I believe it does. If we want to get found, we've got to understand and make this stuff work for us. Because what's got us to this level today is unlikely going to get us to the next level. We need to understand this space properly. So my challenge for you is this, and I do this with lots of businesses. I ask the question, what does your digital twin look like? And I mean, what do I do when I search for your name or product or service online? What do I find? Do I find you? Or do I find a baseball player from Minnesota who shares the same name? Really important when we look at the way consumers are going online to do that research. Do I find you when I search for your name, product or service on page one, or are you gone? Really important. So let's have a look at some of the people that I've worked with. Let's look at it. And I thought that was an awesome movie, by the way. I want to say, let's look at the offline twin for a majority of businesses that I do business with before we start anyway. If I look at them from an offline space, they're kind of this, they're known locally as a nice guy or gal. People know them in their patch. They're involved heavily with the local community. Maybe they do some stuff as a good contributor. They donate stuff locally. They're involved with the Chamber of Commerce, maybe the footy club or something like that. They got some really sexy brochures that their kid did for them, or someone did some really nice stuff for their brochures. They've got a nice shop or office. And generally speaking, everyone knows them in their patch. And that sort of that sort of says most business people are like that on the offline space. Then I say, let's have a look at them online. What are they like online? Let's have a look at the online twin. So they kind of got this thing called Facebook that they keep in touch with the kids with. You know, they sort of have a play from time to time. They just keep in touch with the kids. They've been to this thing called Twitter. They've seen Clive Palmer talk on this thing called Quandra on Twitter. They kind of understand there's this thing called Twitter. As far as video goes, they watched a funny cat video on YouTube once. And we look at video, one of the single biggest opportunities. YouTube, the world's number 2 search engine. And this is what business people are doing, watching funny cat videos, not using that awesome search engine to get found on the web, to have an awesome digital footprint. They got a website that their brother or cousin or someone built them back in 2009. It looked pretty good, it only cost a few $100, and that kind of is their digital footprint as far as video goes. They get some annoying emails from a thing called LinkedIn. They don't all that professional, that crap's about, that's just bull. But they're on Google on page 267. Are you found? What does your digital twin say about you? Really important. I really want to challenge you around that. Let's have a look at some other stuff. Because for me, the change that's happening in our industry across our world is huge. I'm I'm no expert on this stuff, but I understand taxi licences change hands, or used to change hands for around 400 to 500 grand. Is that about right? Anyone in the taxi industry? But the licences were changing hands for around 400 to 500 grand. I was talking to a driver recently. I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Mate, this change has really hit us. Value of taxis has dropped by about $100,000 for the licences from this thing." Has anyone had any experience with this thing?
Yep.
Give me 20 seconds on the Uber experience.
Easy, fantastic.
Cool. Anyone else had an Uber experience?
Great ride.
Yeah, great overseas. Yeah, China especially, it's all it is.
So for those that haven't got Uber, it's an awesome app. It's an app that allows you to geolocate yourself via an app, say, "I'm in this location, send me a black Lincoln Town car," or whatever it might be, to this spot now. A guy turns up in a nice suit with a bottle of water. You jump in the back of the nice Lincoln Town car. He takes you to somewhere else. He doesn't talk to you. He understands the language, which is pretty cool. Okay, you jump out at the other end. You don't touch credit cards. It just is paid via the app, and you move on to your destination. Uber sends you a feedback form and says, "How was the driver?" You rate them 1 out of 5. But guess what? Uber sends a feedback form to the driver and says, "How was the passenger?" So there's all this stuff going on. Uber as a company has come in and disrupted the taxi industry like crazy. Uber is now valued at $18.2 billion. What do you reckon that's done for the taxi industry? Massive change. Because I believe there are kids in garages across the world, across the suburbs, across these streets, finding faster, smarter, better ways to do the things that we do. And if we don't understand that and start to change with it, we're off the shopping list, baby. We seriously are off the shopping list. By the way, can anyone tell me how many cars Uber own at $18.2 billion? Zilch. That's not bad, is it? They found a buyer, they found a seller, found a way to put them together and clip the ticket on the way through. Thanks for coming. But you know, Uber sat back and said, "Well, we're pretty comfortable. There's some nice money for us." Guess what this thing is? Lyft. Anyone seen Lyft? Coming your way, baby. Coming your way. Look at the pink moustache. Oh, look cool. Lyft is the next variation of this. So that's where they found people like John who's saying, "I'm leaving here the valley tonight and I'm driving to the penthouse down the coast." And he just lets Lyft know that that's what he's doing. And Michelle might say, "Oh, awesome, well, I'd like to go to the coast tonight." So she says, "I'll give you $50. He drives Michelle to the coast in the Porsche, and away they go. He takes $45. Lyft. Now, all you got to do to be a Lyft driver is be silly enough to put a pink moustache on the front of your car. But I can tell you, if you've been to San Francisco in the last few weeks, there's plenty doing it, and San Fran's probably the place to do that as well, just quietly. But it's disruption. And if we sit back and think this isn't going to change our business, we're kidding ourselves. Understand the online space. Really critical stuff. Anyone like to take a guess at who these guys are? No, you won't know anyway. Anyone heard of Airbnb? You've all used, some of you guys used it? Okay. Current rating, $10 billion. Current company worth $10 billion. Have they disrupted the travel industry? Absolutely. I was in New York at Christmas time and I spent 2 weeks in an apartment there for $150 a night. In a guy's apartment, it was all mine, 57th floor of the Silver Towers. You know, $400 or $500 a night anywhere else. So these guys have changed the way that we do business. So don't kid yourself that it doesn't matter. Who would have thought Kodak, after 132 years of business, would go down the toilet? And of course, these guys that are really challenging the industry that I spend a lot of time in. Who would have thought that in realestate.com of these guys, in 1997 when they first kicked off, were about $20 to $50 a month to put real estate agents' listings online. Current rate on the latest price from realestate.com is between, wait for it, $6,500 to $8,000 for a 45 premium listing on realestate.com. Do you think that's not challenging the real estate industry? So, that's for me. I believe we absolutely have to shift our analogue brain to the digital world. Otherwise, we're off the shopping list. So my challenge to you is I'm around for a bit of time tonight. I'm looking forward to working with John and the team here with some of the stuff. So if you want to have a chat, my challenge to you is, what does your digital twin look like? Because for me it is change or die. That's the fat man. Have a great night. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me.